Hello again. I'm just checking to see if you can hear me. Yeah, this is really unfortunate and embarrassing. I have been having so much trouble with the audio component of my recording system, and people are commenting on it. Hi, Ricky. Can you hear me this time? Please let me know. Yeah, it's potentially I may have to overhaul my whole system, and so that's definitely a bit of a concern. I just want to know if you can actually hear me and if it's good. Yay! Awesome. Is it loud enough? Obviously, this is a metaphor for me that I've got to speak up and be heard and take the attention. Hi, Murray. Good morning. Thank you for hanging in there with me. Okay, you can hear me intermittently, and Murray says it's loud and clear. Okay. Well, as I said before, I apologize. This is something that I'm absolutely attending to and troubleshooting around. Definitely. Hi, Sue. Hi, Karen. Definitely tech challenged around certain aspects of what I'm dealing with. And there isn't an easy solution, is the bottom answer, without getting a whole new system. So I'm in the process of deciding how I'm going to negotiate that. And in the meantime, I just feel like it's so important that I get material out because we need to talk about some of this stuff. So if you can put up with the nonsense of not being able to hear me, I will continue to show up and we'll get through it together somehow. So today's topic, obviously, we look around, we listen to all the different news sources, and we are facing what appears to be a regional crisis here in Western Canada, actually Canada-wide. Also, we are seeing wildfires, extreme weather on the increase, and this opens up an absolute Pandora's box of questions, debates, contrasting and conflicting perspectives. Let's start with Gaia. Let's start with connecting to our Earth Mother. And before I go down different rabbit holes with this inquiry, I want to allow our Earth to speak and reflect what it wants us to know and how it wants us to approach this scenario that we are all dealing with on some level, regardless of where we are on the planet. I'm going to keep looking over at the comments. If for any reason you stop hearing me, let me know right away so that I can try to troubleshoot and take action on that. Okay, so I've got the cards here. I'm actually going to shuffle, and I'm being careful about where I place the screen so that you can see the cards, but not the computer. Let's go with that. Looks pretty good. We'll do our best with that at the moment. So, yeah, I'm really, really curious, and I'm sure you all are as well, about what is going to be brought forward as important insights and information for us as humanity at this stage in our process. There is the Tower card. So it's almost like we're going to start at the end result, which is what's actually going on. And we're going to work our way backwards. That's what I'm being shown so far. Oh gosh, we talked about Gaia, the world. And there she is, the world card. So she's with us. She's right here. And I feel that there's going to be some important insights come through today. Very, very important. So let's just start with a basic question. What do we need to know about the global current extreme weather and extreme wildfire activity. So here we are. We are showing up as the Ace of Pentacles. We are asking to be shown how we can interpret what's happening and how we can begin to strategize and plan to address what's happening. And before I even lay down the next card, I'm already hearing a very clear message, which is, you know what? We can sort out, just like if there was a fire in a building, you wouldn't stand outside as you watch the building burn and go, oh, was it arson? Who did that? I think I saw somebody creeping in the back. Oh, wait a minute. No, I think I'm pretty sure it was a lightning strike. Oh, no, it was an internal electrical problem. No, we're not going to stand outside the burning building and debate about what caused it. Now, that doesn't mean that some people who are, that's their primary purpose, is to get to the bottom of the investigation. They're going to show up on the scene of that, whatever it is, house fire, and they're already going to be, as it's burning, recording what's happening, taking evidence as the whole process unfolds. But the average person, and certainly the first responders, the firefighters, are not going to be engaging in that debate. So I am not saying that some people are not necessary to be focusing their intention on solving the why is this happening. And there's going to be a lot of perspectives to consider. And it's important that we don't get narrowed into looking at one particular narrative because it fits the political slant, the social slant, the cultural slant that we're in right now. So we're going to respond by looking at how can we work with what's happening and take measures to minimize the impact and be responsible for it before we solve why, when, where, and how, and all of that stuff. So yes, all right, here's the next card, which is a sense of repose around thinking about what is the truth. And you notice here, there's 3 swords. Swords are thoughts. They are communication, ideas. So there's 3 swords that are in debate or under investigation. You know, interesting. I keep hearing this as like an arson investigation. And as I've actually done readings around solving cases of arson, and what's so fascinating is to acknowledge that really good detectives are not biased. They are not biased on the, you know, oh, it's this or it's that or it's the other thing. And usually what ends up becoming known is that there are contributing factors from more than one cause. I'm going to say that again, contributing factors from more than one cause. So we see the actual thought process around, you know, having to quickly draw a conclusion. And they're saying, give it some time, because you see how that golden sword at the bottom comes slowly. The 3 different versions of what's causing this are suspended temporarily. It could even be for 3 years. So it may be 3 or 4 years down the road that we start getting the data, and we get different versions of data. Some of it is very biased. Absolutely, it's important to understand after the fact what happened. But as we're in the crises, they're saying we have an opportunity to step in and change something right now. So that feels really empowering, because they're saying, you know what, the truth eventually will be revealed, and it will likely surprise all of us, because it's likely going to be a combination of factors. For some reason, yeah, interesting. I feel like I'm being told that I'm supposed to explain more about these arson cases that I've worked on. So let's just, great. Let's just look at that here in a minute. We've got in the past 5 of Wands. So a lot of building energy, This is going to be important. Remember this for later on in this live, because when you have a buildup of energy, eventually there has to be a release of that energy. Now we have the Hierophant. The Hierophant is, I want to say, it's like the card that relates to institutions, social order, like the collective paradigm, government responses to things. These are like the narratives that get wrapped up neatly and packaged and delivered. And we know there's a lot of versions around what's happening with these narratives coming out. And each one of the narratives has different solutions or machinations or manipulations that they are suggesting or enforcing or imposing. So right now we have, and this is a number 5 in the past. 5 is chaos. It's a number 5. The Hierophant is the number 5 of the tarot, the 5th major arcana. So another growth, chaos, and change card. And oh my gosh, we've got another 4 down at the bottom. So we've got the 4 of Swords here, the 4 of Pentacles here. And interesting that we're looking at 2 5s and 2 4s. The odds of that in a tiny little spread of 5 cards is pretty extraordinary. Don't you agree? Yeah, that's amazing. So we're mastering, 2 of a kind is mastery. We're mastering the energy of chaos and growth. So some things have to get chaotic in order to change. And we're also mastering the energy of stability. We are mastering the energy of stabilizing under the influence of chaos and growth. And everybody and every narrative has its way of stabilizing. So on the one hand, we're being shown a stabilization that, this card, the 4 of Pentacles, is known as, getting sort of stuck. It's a card that gets stuck in the material. It gets stuck in kind of going for a certain type of security. It creates a rigidity that doesn't allow healthy growth. So there's something underlying this whole question, which is a lot about not being adaptable. Okay, non-adaptability. We've got chaos, then we've got systems stepping in to take, kind of emergency measures, but also to take controlling measures, which leads one to wonder whether or not some of this chaos was initiated to allow those institutions to come in and control more, right? I mean, this is where we're at. But what I'm saying is it's not only that. We've got an issue around looking at security from this perspective where we almost over exaggerate our need for a type of security. We create social structures, we create cities, we create buildings, we create landscapes, we create for evolution. It doesn't allow for healthy growth and the pulse of growth, right? The 5 is the toroidal field, which is also the Fibonacci spiral. And it means that their energy doesn't just stagnate. There's always new growth that comes in. So you can stabilize you know, you can have stabilization, but if it's stabilization that is all about locking in to a system that doesn't allow for growth and for evolution, we end up with these scenarios. So this is everything about our Western society and how we've looked at security, long-term security and stabilization. You know, if you build it out of bricks, right, it's going to last. But we don't know what happens if you build it out of bricks and then by doing that, you change something in the whole metaphysical landscape that starts to create chain reactions. So I'm not just talking about environmental stuff here. I'm talking about metaphysics. So what do we need to do? This is advice. The sun. Okay. The sun and the 8 of cups. Oh my gosh, look at this. The sun and the moon. Sun, solar energy, electricity, fire. Moon, lunar energy, water, balancing, equilibrium of the waters on the planet. So we're looking at going into this question of the solar energy and the tidal lunar energy and finding ourselves in a new relationship that isn't just about security. And yet, our next step is going to need to be, to some extent, preparing ourselves for this growth cycle. Oh, I love this. Strategic, higher perspective. Look at this, Queen of Swords. I really identify with this Queen of Swords. She's a visionary. She has a lower kind of, very base version of herself, which is quite controlling. And yeah, this is also a controlling card, but her higher exalted purpose is to vision strategically around creating systems that are more flexible to work with the change, that is inevitable. Oh gosh, okay. And on the other side, we have energetic exhaustion and stress. Energetic exhaustion and stress. So again, I'm going to lift up here and have a look at your comments. Again, what I'm hearing and sensing is this is not the time to get into these big debates around exactly what percentage of the different causes are creating this reality. It feels like we need to pull back and get more of a bird's eye. Do you see the birds up there? This Queen of Swords is in a lofty perspective that gets a bird's eye view of what's happening on the ground and says, we're going to go through some challenge. We're going to go through some challenge. And as I'm saying this, I want to acknowledge any of you who are really suffering as a result of what's going on with extreme weather, with wildfires. I have personally had experiences with being on evacuation alert several times. I live in a part of Canada that is renowned, even decades ago, for extreme wildfire activity. I am not, naive to the real effect. I've spent countless summers in smoky cities, in smoky rural areas where we literally are like helping our neighbors get out of their house. So I understand that this is not just something we can have this lofty bird's eye view about. It's real. It's real and it's really challenging. And when we are in this state, we look for something or someone to blame. This is the most important piece here. If we look for someone or something to blame immediately, if we don't allow for all the chaos to make obvious the causes, okay? It's like they're kind of saying it's like a snowball, and this Ace of Pentacles can be seen like a snowball. It's usually a very positive thing. So we can assume, especially with the Sun card here, we can assume that this whole process that we're going through, which, by the way, is part of a large procession of the equinoxes. This is part of a large system ongoing of global cataclysms throughout all of this planet's history. Gaia is saying, I'm trying to do my house cleaning. I'm trying to do my seasonal cleaning. And that does not mean that some of what's happening has been done deliberately by nefarious sources, entities. But is it possible that that is actually part of Gaia's process? Gaia's saying, I'm going to use 4 different methods to scrub my countertop, and we're there going like, oh, that method is wrong and this method is wrong. And we're victims because of that. And actually, if we can allow ourselves to zoom out a little and say, you know what? We don't understand the larger cosmic order well enough to be able to make these predictions or accusations or perspectives clearly, because something bigger is happening here. And if we get caught up in having to know, think about the mental energy it takes to know what's causing this, so that we can point a finger and then put all our energy into addressing that one thing. All that mental energy that could be going into responding and supporting, if Gaia is cleaning house right now, let's help her. But let's do it in a way that minimizes the impact on us. In order to do that, we're going to need to create systems that are more flexible. One thing I notice right away when I think of this is we are looking at scenarios on our planet, and I saw this 3 years ago at the beginning of, what? I was like, we're going to need to get better at moving around, and we're going to need to get better at working together. It's fascinating. I'm really interested in human history, alternative human history, human evolution, and so on. And there's so much. I mean, we could talk for days and days about all the material and the evidence that's been hidden from us, because if we understood this, we would realize we've been at this for a very, very long time. And, there's such an importance for creating flexible systems. So we've been told that our ancient ancestors were nomadic and they just wandered around aimlessly. Now we're discovering that they actually settled regularly, and their nomadic wanderings were very oriented to metaphysics, to astronomy and astrology. There was great earth wisdom. They were in connection with Gaia and understood, oh, we're going through one of those cycles. We need to move this way. And it was part of their narrative. It was part of their worldview, of their mythology. And so they didn't see themselves as being victims because Gaia needed to change regularly. They keep showing me a table for some reason going, Gaia's going, this tablecloth needs washing. We got to shake the crumbs off and wash the tablecloth. And us now who are like, oh, no. We put that there, or we are demanding and expecting that that's never going to change. You had the tablecloth. Why are you taking it away? We're really panicking because we don't understand that part of being on this planet, part of being in this 3D is about being adaptable. And it's not just like, oh, I'm a victim, Gaia's throwing a tantrum and now I got to run for the hills. It's about if we can become more part of the natural order and see the ebbs and the flows and the cycles as beautiful, it's probably, I'm being told now to go back to this work that I've done on investigating arson through my divination tools, through the cards. And the thing that's blown me away over the years, because I've probably worked on like 3 or 4 of these cases, interestingly enough, and often the end result provides that awareness that there were several factors, even though there could have been an arsonist that went in and deliberately did something. The whole energy of leaving things in a risky, precarious state, right? Like somehow it was easy to arson because there was already other issues. Does that make sense? It's like, it's the whole package. It's energetic. Something that is rigid and kind of got the blinders on is energetically just open to being attacked because it doesn't see. It doesn't feel safe to take that big vantage point and be like, regularly adapting. And to be adaptable, you have to be willing to go down to zero, but it's never zero, because zero would be you don't have any experience, you don't have any wisdom, you don't have any heart, you don't have any relationships, you don't have any knowledge. It's just zero in the material realm. So, okay, I'm going to go look through. Yeah. Are we not creating all of this? Okay, so Jacqueline, I see you came in. I don't know if you've been in for a while, but as I said, I am not going to go down each of the, rabbit holes around the different causes, because as I was just saying, similar to my arson investigations, what I have learned over time is that there's usually not just one cause. There's usually a combination of factors that create, you could call it a perfect storm. So I am not trying to say that we don't need to investigate these things and learn more about, any nefarious activity that is putting us at risk. However, let's just understand as well, I've also been a citizen of Earth in this beautiful province of British Columbia, Canada, for like 30 years. And I've walked in the forest. I'm an avid hiker. I've been hiking in the backcountry for decades. And over the last 10 years, I've seen increasing. We've got pine beetle infestations. We've got, large swaths of forest land that is literally dying. So then you've got this whole huge amount of dead wood in the forests. And then we've also got the land itself and the water systems, which have been, for a whole myriad of different reasons, compromised by human activity. And there's been massive change in the moisture levels. So again, we've got the water and the fire, water and fire, earth and sky, masculine, feminine. We've got this attempt to bring some kind of balance, but we're going into a chaotic cycle. So I'm not saying that it's only human activity that's created the drought, that's created the death of certain species of trees in the forest, which then just creates a whole pile of tinder that's so easy to ignite, especially when there's drought and dry conditions year after year after year. However, we're also looking at the precession of the equinoxes, these cycles, these earth cycles where earth is saying, this is my spring cycle, I'm cleaning. And it coincides with increased solar activity. And add into that mix agendas around manipulating the natural processes on planet Earth and manipulating humanity and other life forms, other carbon-based life forms on planet Earth. And you've got a perfect recipe for a lot of chaos. And again, as I said, instead of us looking at stopping and saying, okay, let's just get clear. Is it this? Is it that? Is it this? Is it solar activity? Is it, like nefarious agendas that are doing all of these, events, activating, manipulating, dominating? Is this a natural cycle that Earth goes through regularly? Well, is it possible that it's a combination of those things? And if it is, can we imagine just for a minute so that we stop responding as victims that just want to stabilize into rigid systems of control? I want to control this. Who do I take down so that this stops? I want this to stop. What do I do? What button do I press to make this stop? They're saying it's actually the opposite of rigidity and going into any action to create security. It's looking intelligently from a bigger picture perspective, like that Queen of Swords, and saying, whatever we do from here on, we are going to need to create systems that are flexible. So I was speaking a few minutes ago about what I was seeing in readings back in 2020. And I was seeing, wow, we're going to need to be able to migrate. We're going to need to be able to move around the planet differently. Does this mean that you don't have a home base? No. What it means is that you are flexible in your way that you feel secure. So maybe you have a home base and a motorized recreational vehicle and relatives and friends in different regions, in different continents, in different places, and you get used to visiting, traveling in different ways, traveling by water, like that. You start to get into this energy of, it's not just about staying home. Where's that Four of Pentacles? It's not just about staying home and battening down the hatches and hoping that all of these things pass you by. It's about getting into the mix and going, okay, I'm going to live differently. I'm going to, if you've ever gone through evacuation orders and you have sometimes only a couple of hours to get everything out of your home that you think is valuable enough to take with you in your vehicle, boy, is that ever a wake-up call. I've done it. And you learn pretty quickly how to see what you have and how to release being identified and feeling safe because of material things. And it's interesting. I actually do this exercise regularly now. I move a lot anyway. They designed me to be a kind of nomadic personality where I actually enjoy moving around. It's about creating connection, community, having that energy of allowing for growth, allowing for the pulse of growth to constantly be refreshing my reality. I don't recommend it to everyone, but I do feel that a little bit of this homeopathic medicine of do that exercise. Do that exercise of what would you take in your vehicle today if you had, let's say, 24 hours to decide. I did it. I actually just did it a couple of months ago, and I put everything on the living room floor of, my front room. And it actually didn't take up much space. I mean, I was like going really, like, if I had to do it in an hour, what would I take? And I literally went through my house, and what I saw there, I was like, note to self, note to self. Okay. If I am looking at living differently, if I am, let's say, going to travel, I'm going to put certain things in storage. I'm going to take things with me. That pile of things in the middle of the floor, I'm already in relationship with that, with the freedom and the flexibility I've given myself to think outside that box. Nothing's going to happen if you just do an exercise like that. In fact, they used to say, when they would teach us those fire drills, right? You taught the fire drill. You were supposed to do your home fire drill. How would you get out of your room? How would you get out of your house? And all these kinds of things. And they said that it was interesting that a lot of the people who did regular, like annual fire drills with their family and stuff, they never had fires. So it's something going on in here, folks. There's something going on to rearrange our relationship with our material reality. It doesn't mean that things don't matter. It doesn't mean that having a home base does not matter. In fact, it means the opposite. It means that home and things and people matter so much that we're going to constantly create containers of flexibility so that they grow with us. Okay. It's like here we are all talking about ascension and expansion and all of this incredible spiritual conscious evolution that we're going through, but we expect to sort of contain it all in the old stuff, right? It's like, oh, but that can happen, but I don't want to have to change anything about the way I live. I don't want my house threatened. I don't want my stuff threatened. I don't want my vehicle threatened. I don't want my mortgage threatened. It's like, so it's beautiful to acknowledge that the transition into more flexible systems is not black and white. Just like my polarization talk last week, this is not about chastising yourself and going, oh, I've got to throw everything out and hit the road in my RV and not worry about having a home base. No, it's not that. What it is it's about the reasons why you love your things, you love your home. It's about relationship. It's about meaningful life experience. And if you feel there's only one small reality that's going to give you that, you're already living in a crumbling old paradigm that's eventually going to attract chaotic change. It's seeing that there's always so many ways to look at life. There's always so many ways to strategize about the future. And I don't know about you, but have you ever been in a scenario where you were in a situation that was stable and secure, like a job, for example, a home, something like this, and then there was something that came to threaten it? And I mean, look at how many of us went through that 3 years ago, right? So there's something that came in to threaten the safety and security of the thing that you had grown accustomed to. And as it was coming, be it, fire, flood, whatever it is, as it was coming, or global, what, as that was coming, some part of you activated and got excited. Have you ever felt that? Where you're actually excited when a crisis hits? Think about it. Think about it. I lived on Vancouver Island years ago during the biggest, it was actually declared a state of national or regional emergency. We had the military in there because we had the biggest snowfall that ever had been recorded on the island, and nobody could get out of their homes. Like literally, the snow is up to almost the top of your doors and stuff, and they were digging people out. And I mean, it was just absolute chaos. When we all figured out how to get out and get around and walk around, I mean, nothing, the schools closed, the people's businesses were shut down. I mean, nobody was going anywhere to do any of their usual stuff. The caring, the kindness, the community connection, the love thy neighbor, the people, even the grumps, even the neighbors that you didn't want to even smile at when you walked by their place because they were so grumpy or miserable or, uptight. They were out doling out hot chocolate and stuff. Like, come on, people. Some part inside of us is desiring, it's longing for change. It's praying for change. That is what's going on. It isn't we've done this to ourselves because we're bad and we deserve to be punished. It's we are going, gosh, Mother Nature is house cleaning. Good thing, because things are looking a little dismal around here, a little lackluster. And that's the other piece that I feel like people are very anxious about is, oh, well, if everything burns and there's floods and tornadoes and avalanches and earthquakes, we're going to be living on Mars. We're going to have nothing. There's going to be nothing left on this planet. Okay, let's take a big collective breath. And now we want to talk to the permaculture experts, the people that know about working to regenerate, regenerative agriculture, regenerative permaculture design. People that know about regeneration know that every system, in a garden, you're not supposed to plant in the same area year after year. You've got to change. Even if your strawberries did really well there for 4 years, guess what? If you don't allow for growth and change, the natural order, the law of nature has the Fibonacci spiral at the center of it. It's change. So there's no way a healthy system is ever like set in stone, ever. So when we get into recognizing that this change, after the aftermath, I remember after Mount St. Helens erupted, and there was this devastating effect on the regional landscape, and there was a lake at the base of that volcano. Yes, you remember that? I can't remember the name of the lake now, but I remember seeing a study about 10 years after the event. So the scientists went into this lake at the beginning, and they were like, oh, it's completely acidified. There's zero life form. And it's going to be that way for like 1,000 years or 10,000 years or whatever. It's going to take so long to, come back into life. Guess what? I don't know, 2-3 years, I think. Life form. Flourishing life form. Okay. After a fire, growth, new growth, change. And it doesn't just look like paradise instantly. Right after the fire, there's a certain kind of growth that comes in. It's nature's first response to creating. Nature builds and creates this beautiful nitrogen-rich landscape that is temporary, and then that dies and it creates new soil for the next level of growth that naturally starts to appear after about a decade or 20, 30 years. So nature knows how to regenerate. I mean, we'll talk about Mars another time. That's a totally different kettle of fish. Where we are here on Earth, this planet has done this a lot. It has cleaned house and regenerated itself. And we are witnessing this happening at this time. It's been predicted. All of the major, predictions around these times have all said that we're going to go through huge global change, whether it happens from nefarious agendas, from solar activity, from human, stupidity or naivety. It's scheduled to happen, and all of those things together are part of the growth. Is it possible that Gaia is in a process of cleaning in order to prepare to rebirth a new earth? And if we focus on that instead of what's causing this and how do we get back to security because we're terrified, we're slowing it down. And the rigidity that comes with that kind of thinking is actually attracting more chaos to us. If you think about a lightning rod, it sticks up high, and you could say it's kind of full of itself, right? It sticks up really high and it's very rigid. It doesn't blow or bend in the wind, and lightning comes down to that to strike it. It's the rigidity that it's drawn to. Okay, I'm going to look at your comments. Thanks for hanging in there with me. I get on these rants, I also want to inquire. I'm shuffling again. I want to inquire about what do we do? What do we do? How do we respond? Was like, what do we need to know was the last question. Now, what do we need to do? For those of us that are open-minded and open-hearted enough to see the big picture of this and to not feel completely disempowered and angry about it, victimized. Those of us that have the hearts and minds to imagine creatively how this could serve a better future than we can even imagine. What do we do? How do we respond right now? How do we respond to what's going on? Ooh, look at that again. That tower there. Okay, I'm going to look at these cards in a sec, but first I want to go back through your comments a little bit. Yeah. Shauna, trust the divine plan. Hello. Pennsylvania air quality is very bad. Yeah, gosh, I am so with you. As I said, Vicky area in France where I am is very dry. One of the debts is not allowing the water of plants. Okay. Aussie Sue. Okay. I'm hearing what you're saying about devastating fires, all from man-made as always. Again, as I said, you are right. And there is more. You are all right. This is not one versus the other. Again, the perfect storm is about all the conditions: dryness, drought, precession of the equinoxes, cosmic cycles going through, our Earth moving through universal cycles and going through the photon belt and all the stuff that's happening, right? All the stuff that we haven't really got the big picture science awareness to even grok. A very few of us can actually wrap our heads around that kind of magnitude of cycles within cycles. It's like those nesting dolls, right? And we're trying to look at the little nesting doll right beside us and go, you're the problem. It's you. If you would just stop doing this, all of this would change. And then if we can allow ourselves to go, okay, this is a process. It's huge. It's a big process. It affects us all. It affects us all. And maybe it's not just about punishment and destruction and devastation. Maybe there is something deeper going on here. And maybe we are attracting it because we are ready to respond in a new way, to be healed like the land gets healed by the fires, by the floods. It gets devastated, but on another level, it gets reactivated. So really, if you can allow yourself to think about the metaphysics of the toroidal field, this pulse of creation, in my tarot classes, we do the numerology from 1 to 10, because each of the 4 suits of the tarot have 10 cards, number 1 to 10. Number 1 to 10 of swords, of wands, of cups, and of pentacles. And when we get to number 5, it's where everybody goes, oh no, not the dreaded 5s. The 5s are chaos and growth. The 5s are the Fibonacci sequence. The 5s are the energy of that pulsing growth and change, which means, you just get stabilized and then there's change. You just get stabilized and then there's change. What if instead of going, I'm mad now because I'm constantly getting challenged with change, what if we were to say, oh, I understand. Change and chaos and growth are a gift. They are my birthright. I've come to this dense 3D planet of experience where I have the opportunity to move in and out to 4 and 5D. How many of us are talking about going into 5D? 5D is totally comfortable with change. 5D is flexible. 5D is adaptable. That's what the number 5s are in the tarot. And that's what we are being healed. A lot of what this 4 rigidity, structure, security, fixation on security is resulting from is the trauma of being in a power dominant system for about the last 8,000 years. So we've been in a system that's increasingly put this model of control over us. And the only way we've been, what happens when you have control over you? There's no choice. There's no freedom for growth and change. You have to adapt to a rigid model and you become a rigid model. So we've adapted to a rigid model. We've become a rigid model. And now the consciousness, the collective psyche of humanity is going, okay, I'm ready to break out of that now. I'm ready to break out of that rigid model. And that times up beautifully with Gaia's house cleaning plan. So let's roll up our sleeves and jump in. Thank you, Robin, for saying don't apologize for your technical issues. It's very interesting. I just got to say this here for a moment because I don't know if people are aware of what my life looks like and what kind of person I am, but I am an avid researcher. I spend all my time digging into ancient history, metaphysical literature, and all these topics. I'm always deepening my perspective and learning more. And then I'm also I've got like 8 courses that are in different degrees of production right now. I'm working on 3 new books, and I do readings pretty much full time every week to support myself and my family. So it's like, yeah, the technical thing gets a little bit like, whoa, gosh, somebody come in and fix this for me, please, because my whole focus is in other places. So I'm not foolish. I'm aware that it's unfortunate and I could be losing subscribers and lowering the quality of the content that I'm putting out there because of, filming issues and, sound issues and stuff like that. And it's for me always just this weighing out of priorities. I've got to attend to it, but it also falls into a spectrum of a lot of things that I'm attending to, and none of them can get dropped entirely. So thank you for hearing my explanation of why I am the way I am and where I'm at. Let's go now to looking at what do we do? What do we do? As I said, those of us that are open-hearted and open-minded, what do we do to help create, a pioneering energy of response? And knowing that there will come a day, likely in our lifetimes, where a lot more of the reasons and who's responsible or what's responsible for all of these events will become obvious. But right now is not the time to lament over that. Right now is the time to look at a different response. Because again, as I said, I get this sense, Spirit is guiding me to have the perspective that as we become more adaptable and flexible, the experience outside is not going to be as extreme. It's going to start to soften gradually. So the need for it to be so intense is directly in proportion to our rigidity, is what I'm hearing at the moment. So I'm going to lower the screen again gently here, and we will have a look. Nice. We will have a look at what does Spirit want us to know? What does Spirit want us to do? Okay, right away, two cards that showed up are this chaos. The rigid structure of the tower gets hit by lightning and it sets it on fire. So the rigidity on the planet is what is drawing the energy of chaos to, it's also, I'm hearing, to simplify our approach, to not purify our approach, but to upgrade our frequency so that our approach is more dynamic, is more in alignment with universal natural law. We've been living under artificial law for about, 6,000 to 8,000 years, increasingly so. So now artificial law is getting literally kind of blown up. And natural law is emerging to replace it. So there's this beautiful image of the character that's standing, looking out at the big picture, holding the globe in their hands and looking at this objectively without a lot of disturbing emotion. We've got, okay, I'm just pulling the cards as they're showing up here. That's what the guides are saying. We've got this Page of Cups, Three of Pentacles. So we are gently but lovingly, we're leading with this Page of Cups is like the inner child. We are leading with our innocence, with our humility. This is where all the neighbors come out to help each other. Okay. This is what we're leading with. And we're creating, guess what? Flexible systems. Three of Pentacles is different from the Four of Pentacles because the Three of Pentacles is a lot simpler, but it's also in a way more complex. It's all about collaboration and creating a flexible, evolving system. I call it the entrepreneur card. So we're moving into collaborating and creating smaller scale responses regionally, coming from this place of, instead of being angry and looking for who's to blame, being loving, grateful, coming from that perspective of innocence. Like, if we could only see from the larger perspective, we would know that it isn't about blame. It's about growth. In order for that to happen, we're going to need to go through facing our fears, the ego, the deep subconscious, and here's another thing. So what I'm being shown, the guides are saying we are going both directions. We are going from our psyche out to Gaia and ultimately out to universal consciousness. And then all of that energy is coming back in to us. So there's this call and response kind of activity happening. And what happens when there's a lot of chaos out there is it stirs up any buried trauma that we have. So individually, ancestrally, regionally, nationally, globally, all our buried traumas are getting stirred up to the surface, worked up to the surface. And as we go through our emotional purging of that, that emotional purging energy goes back out to the universe and creates an acceleration. So it's a loop. It's a loop. It's like kind of like that catch-22 loop where it, well, they're actually showing me a purge, and they're saying, when you're in the middle of purging, if you had food poisoning or something, you kind of can't stop in the middle of it and go, okay, that's enough. I can't, no more of that, right? It's like, you got to get it all out. It's got to complete its cycle so that you can heal. So there's something here about knowing that once we're into this degree, we've got to ride it out. And we're not looking for security, right? Like, the person that's sick with food poisoning or something, they're not trying to get out the door and in their car and go to work. They're just trying to feel better and go to bed and heal. It's like, we're not trying to rush into a sense of how are we going to be secure in the big picture yet. We're going through the crisis. So we're going to respond in a different way than we've been living for the majority of us from Western civilization, growing up with a degree of privilege. We're going to be seeing a different reality, but it's not a punishment. It is an opportunity to bring up a lot of this stuff. And you know what is so beautiful? Just like I said about the experience I had with my community when we had that, it was about 10 days that the roads were closed. And what was so beautiful about that is it actually changed the relationships in the community. We literally became closer as a result of it. And that's just a small example. So what we're not noticing when we see this devastation is we're not noticing the beautiful ingenuity of the human response. We're not noticing how each of these things is creating like a rolling out frequency of heart opening. Wow. Yeah, like I'm literally seeing these waves of heart opening happening. And what happens, even in, I know the areas up in northern Alberta and northern BC that were evacuated a few years ago, and the whole community was destroyed and people had to start from scratch, and the outpouring of support. Like, these people said they could never look at life the same again. Like, it literally was like a spiritual awakening for every one of them. It was like a rite of passage. And so this is what's happening. This is what's happening, and I feel like one of the really beautiful parts of this is just like this card, which people are afraid of, the death card, it's the process of change. It's the transformer card, transformation, permanent change that is about evolutionary growth, the recycling, the regeneration of energy. So it's no longer stagnant. Okay. So once we go through this process, it affects everything. What do they call that? The butterfly effect. A butterfly flutters its wings here and it triggers a tsunami on the other side of the planet. How is that even possible? Like, how do we understand that there's that much connectivity between everything that happens? And I remember hearing an Indigenous story years ago. I can't remember which nation this is from. I feel like it was a Native American Indigenous story. My apologies if I get it wrong. What the story reflects is how there was a point in humanity's journey where, for a very long time, Indigenous peoples of the earth, which are the survivors of the last evolutionary process of house cleaning, and they, as a result, entered into a deep, potent relationship with earth, with natural law, with universal consciousness. And then, as those cycles happen, they needed to fall out of that relationship and go into abstraction and separation and duality, which we talked about last week. Well, as they started to disconnect from that beautiful integrated relationship with earth, cosmos, universal consciousness, they started to disrespect earth. And the story was that this careless youth threw a live frog into the fire just for fun. And then down the road, these things started happening to their village. And it set off this kind of chain reaction where people started to alienate from the earth and from each other. And they started to project blame and judgment. And, the message was basically, it started with what was technically, supposedly, like just a disrespectful, naive, youthful folly, but it represented the beginning of that separation process. And what I've heard, we'll leave you off on a nice note here, is that this particular round, because according to the precession of the equinoxes and the Kali Yuga cycles, we go asleep for a couple of thousand years, maybe a little more, for 4,000 years, and then we emerge, are reborn into a beautiful golden age, and then it comes around again, right? And in some of these cycles, many of these cycles on this planet, when we've gone through the Kali Yuga, which is where we are right now, which is the destruction to wake us all up, people, there's been so much devastation that there's not a lot of people left, and they have to start technologically from scratch again. What I've heard and understood is that this time we're doing that differently. This time, because each time it's slightly different. Each time there's more and more evolution. There's more that we bring from the journey around that whole cyclical wheel. And this time we are emerging differently. We are remembering. We've created technology, albeit it's been used, for nefarious purposes, but it's there. And we've created information, knowledge, wisdom, the ability to know, to communicate, to share information. We've created the internet. We've created these ways that so many of us have access to so much knowledge and information right now. So this transition is going to be different than the others. And that behooves us really to say, what do we do with all that we have, with all that we know, with all that we've evolved through all these cycles of, dark age, golden age, death, and regeneration? What do we bring into this next cycle so that we maybe don't have to go down on our knees and start from scratch? Maybe we go inside and see the beauty of what's in front of us. And instead of feeling like victims and afraid, we open our hearts and enter into a co-creative relationship with Gaia, with Source, and we begin to create new systems that are flexible. So we've gone on a really big journey here. Thanks for hanging in there. For those of you that have walked the miles with me, we're opening a lot of, paths of inquiry, metaphysically, historically, spiritually, politically, socially, and so on. So it's a lot, but I really encourage you to stay in that place of not like surrender and not closing your eyes, but of curiosity of how this may help us to grow into more flexible beings. And the guides are saying I'm supposed to leave you off with reiterating those points I made earlier, which is about it feels like it's going to be important that we get comfortable with being mobile, having mobile living situations like recreational vehicles or friends that have recreational vehicles, going on little trips and playing house by, let's see what it would feel like to go on a little trip, even just for a weekend. Let's see what it would feel like to go visit people in another region. People are doing these things called, house trades or home trades. It's a way that you can go on holiday and be in one part of the world and stay in someone else's home, and they can come and stay in your home and have a different experience. All of these kinds of things where we're going to different regions, we're connecting with family members in different areas. In the olden times, people would go regularly for family reunions and gather in certain areas. If we reinstate some of this, it's not just about casual tourism, but it's about, okay, we're going to make it a regular thing that we go and visit our relatives in a different state or in a different province or in a different country. We're going to go once every 2 years, and they're going to come and see us, so that if for some reason one of us needs to leave where we are quite quickly, we have already got that going. We're like, okay, we're coming. And it wasn't that long ago that our ancestors were way more comfortable with this. If you think about it, our ancestors, even 100 years ago, were totally good at like relocating, going from one area to another. If there was war, if there were issues, people would like literally immigrate to whole new regions. They would go and stay with family in different countries. We are seeing the refugee crisis going on right now on the planet. All of this energy of people moving around. But instead of feeling victimized by just being randomly cast into that role, let's start to treat the way we live here differently, where we're like, okay, I'm going to intentionally, preemptively create more flexibility. I'm going to have my belongings that are the most sacred things, like listed or tagged or whatever, where I know exactly what is most important to me. And it takes away the fear of like, oh no, here comes an evacuation order. It's like, okay, I've got my plan and there's options. And that creates a sense of inner peace and a willingness to think differently about how to strategize new security. The new security is flexible and adaptable. That's the final word. Blessings to you all. I still have my sale on. When I put this live up, we will be able to see the link below where you can access the coupon code for 20% off all readings and healing sessions with me that are purchased before the 20th of June. Have a beautiful week, everyone. Bye for now.